I was with my lover in the bedroom when my daughter shouted that her dad was home. Hello, Reddit. Never really thought I'd be one of those people coming here to talk about my worst mistakes online, but here I am. Ironic, right? I've ruined and destroyed my life, and I did it all with open eyes. My life is in absolute ruins, and it's all my fucking fault. The worst part? My daughter is going down with me, and I can't even begin to explain how much I regret everything. So, let's just call me Sarah. My husband and I have been married for over 15 years. We're both in our late 30s, and we have 2 kids, Zoe, who's 15, and Brad, who's 12. Things were great in the beginning. My husband was that guy, the romantic, thoughtful type. You know, the kind of husband that everyone else is jealous of because he remembers the little things, makes sweet gestures, and always puts the family first. He was good to me. Honestly, more than good. But I guess after 15 years of marriage, something changed. Or maybe it was always going to change, and I just didn't want to admit it. The love starts slipping away after a while, doesn't it? It's like it happens in slow motion. You don't even notice it until one day you wake up and realize you've become more like roommates than partners. There's no passion anymore, no excitement. Everything feels routine. Now, don't get me wrong, he didn't change, I did. And I've spent countless sleepless nights trying to figure out why, but maybe it doesn't even matter anymore. All I know is I started wanting more attention, more excitement, more of something I couldn't even define. And that's where everything started spiraling out of control. Zoe, my daughter, has always been a mommy's girl. She's been attached to me since the day she was born. We've always been incredibly close. She's my supporter, my shadow, and if I'm being honest, that only made what I did even worse. It's not just that she's always supported me, she's trusted me completely. And I've broken that trust in the worst way possible. Brad, on the other hand, has always been more of a daddy's boy. It's funny, everyone used to joke about how perfectly balanced our family was. Zoe was always closer to me, and Brad was closer to my husband. It was like a running joke in our house, like we'd each taken one kid under our wing. I guess that's why it was easier for me to confide in Zoe, to let her in on things I never should have. Things between my husband and me were still fine on the surface, but deep down, I was already drifting away. I didn't want to admit it then, but I can see it now. I guess my husband and I had had our ups and downs like any couple, but lately it had been more downs. The love was slipping away. We weren't fighting exactly. There wasn't any big dramatic moment where things fell apart. It was more like we were just drifting. We were more like roommates than partners. We barely talked, and when we did, it was about the usual boring things. Who was picking up the kids, what groceries we needed, stuff like that. We rarely touched anymore. And when we did, it felt forced, like we were going through the motions because that's what married people are supposed to do, right? I'm not proud of what I did. To be honest, I'm ashamed. But if you're going to read this, I owe it to you to be brutally honest. I hated how monotonous our routine had become. I hated how boring my life felt. I hated everything, and it got to a point where I didn't even recognize myself anymore. I wasn't just unhappy, I was resentful. I resented my husband for not noticing how miserable I was. I resented the life we had built, even though it was supposed to be everything I ever wanted. And that's when I met him. Let's just call him Ryan. He was everything my husband wasn't. He was exciting, spontaneous, and interested in me in a way that my husband hadn't been in years. He saw me as me, not just as a wife or a mother. When we talked, it wasn't about the kids or the bills or our boring routine. He asked me about my dreams, my thoughts, my life. He made me feel like I mattered again. It started small. It always does, right? Just casual conversations after work. Ryan and I met at work, and at first it was harmless. We'd talk about the day, complain about our jobs, laugh about something stupid one of our coworkers did. But then, one day, he asked if I wanted to grab coffee after work. I said yes. I mean, it was just coffee. What's the harm in that? But that coffee turned into something else. We'd sit for hours talking about everything. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe, like I wasn't trapped in this dull, suffocating routine that had become my life. With Ryan, I felt free. And it wasn't just that he was listening to me, he understood me. He made me feel alive again, like there was still something left in me that wasn't tied to being a wife or a mother. I didn't realize it at the time, but I was already slipping away from my husband, from my family, from everything that used to matter to me. It was subtle at first, an extra coffee here, a longer conversation there, but it grew. And the more I saw Ryan, the more I wanted to be with him. I knew it was wrong. God did I know, but I couldn't stop. Ryan made me feel something I hadn't felt in years, wanted. And when you've gone so long without feeling wanted, without feeling seen, you start justifying things. You tell yourself you deserve it, that it's harmless, that no one's getting hurt. But that's a lie. Someone always gets hurt. I knew it was wrong, but like I said before, when you've been starved for attention for so long, you start justifying things. You tell yourself that you deserve it, that it's just a fling, that it's nothing serious. You convince yourself that you can stop whenever you want. It's harmless, right? But of course, none of that was true. Ryan and I started seeing each other more often, and our relationship deepened and escalated faster than I could have imagined. Before I knew it, I was in way too deep. We weren't just having some casual thing on the side. We were in a full-blown affair, and as much as I hate to admit it, my life started to change, and at least in the beginning, it changed for the better. Well, at least that's what I thought. I was happier. I wasn't stuck in the same boring, monotonous routine anymore. I wasn't just a wife who cooked dinner, cleaned up after the kids, and made sure everything ran smoothly. I had an exciting life again. There was this rush that came with sneaking around, with having this whole secret world with Ryan. I felt alive in a way I hadn't in years. And with that came the distancing. I became even more disconnected from my husband. It wasn't intentional at first, but soon it was like I barely cared about him anymore. He didn't excite me. He didn't make me feel wanted. He didn't make me feel anything, really. In my head, I was already checked out of our marriage. Every day I spent with Ryan only pushed me further away. I couldn't even be bothered to care about my husband's efforts anymore, despite the fact that he had always been so good to me. He didn't deserve this, but I was too wrapped up in my own world to see that. I won't lie, I immensely enjoyed my affair with Ryan. Every moment felt like an escape, a reprieve from the suffocating monotony of my life. I was loving every second of it. I felt like a different person when I was with him, and honestly, I didn't want it to end. But then, as if a switch had flipped, my husband suddenly became more present. He started working fewer hours and spending more time at home. He even started talking about working on repainting the house together. Just little home projects, things to do as a couple. He'd noticed how distant I had become over the past few months, or really over the past few years, and he wanted to fix things. He wanted to work on us. He'd see me sitting at the kitchen table lost in thought, and he'd try to reach out. He'd ask how I was doing, if there was anything bothering me, if we needed to talk. But I was already so far gone. By then, I didn't want to fix things. I didn't want to have deep conversations or work on our marriage. I was too engrossed in Ryan, too wrapped up in the excitement of this new life I was living. My husband's attempts to reconnect only felt like distractions, like he was trying to pull me away from the one thing that was making me happy. Every time he tried to bring up fixing our relationship, I shut him down. I wasn't interested. I didn't care. I was already emotionally checked out, and I rebuffed and refused him every step of the way. He'd ask me to spend more time with him, and I'd make up an excuse. He'd suggest a date night, and I'd brush it off like it didn't matter. I felt nothing. No guilt, no sadness, just a numbness toward him and everything we'd built together. It's like I couldn't even see the man who had been there for me for all these years. He was just there, existing in the background while I was caught up in my affair. I didn't want him anymore. And no matter what he did to try and fix things, I had already made up my mind. I was gone. I felt kind of bad, I guess, especially since I knew that my husband still loved me. He was trying every step of the way to reconnect with me, to salvage whatever was left between us. And I could see it in his eyes, in the way he'd look at me when he thought I wasn't paying attention. But the truth is, I didn't feel bad enough to reconsider what I was doing. I wasn't sorry enough to stop. The guilt was there, sure, but it wasn't strong enough to overpower how much I enjoyed my time with Ryan. Then my husband told me he had to go on a business trip. He'd be gone for a few days, nothing too long, but long enough. It was the perfect opportunity for me to spend time with Ryan, or so I thought. But of course there was a catch. The kids would still be home. They were on holiday, and both of them being introverts, they rarely left the house. Despite being teenagers, Zoe and Brad were major homebodies. They didn't have many friends and didn't seem interested in going out. Even when I tried to encourage them to socialize, they'd rather stay in and do their own thing. I wanted to see Ryan so badly, but I couldn't just bring him over to the house with the kids home. It would have been too risky. And as much as I wanted to lie and say I was going somewhere else, I couldn't come up with a believable excuse. Most of my family lived out of state, and I wasn't close to my husband's family. My kids knew that, so lying about going to see them would have been suspicious. Plus, I didn't have many friends. Ironically, I guess they inherited that introvert gene from me. Even if I had pretended to visit someone, the kids would have wanted to come with me because they hated being left alone for too long. On top of that, Brad wasn't feeling well. He had been under the weather for a few days, and I knew he'd need me around just in case things got worse. It was a whole mess. I should have just taken it as a sign from the universe, or God, or whatever, that it wasn't the right time to meet with Ryan. Any sensible person would have realized that. But no, not me. I was too far gone. I needed to see him that day, desperately. I spent the entire morning pacing around trying to think of ways to make it work. How could I get Ryan to the house without the kids seeing him? Could I sneak him in somehow? It was driving me crazy. Zoe noticed me pacing and lost in thought, and of course she got worried. She came over asking me what was wrong, if everything was okay. And that's where I really screwed up. Instead of just brushing it off or coming up with some half-decent lie, I decided to confide in her. Stupid, I know. But in that moment, I felt like I had no other option. I told her there was a friend of mine that I wanted to see, and that I didn't want Brad to see him, because I didn't want him getting the wrong idea. Zoe, being the sweet, loyal daughter she's always been, immediately offered to help. She asked if my friend could come over to the house, and when I said yes, she promised to keep Brad occupied upstairs. That way he wouldn't see anything and wouldn't ask questions. I could hardly believe it. My own daughter was on board with this. It was like everything was falling into place. So I invited Ryan over. He showed up in less than 30 minutes. I was excited, giddy even, but the moment Ryan walked through the door, I saw the look on Zoe's face. She wasn't stupid. From the way she looked at him and then at me, I could tell she had figured it out. She knew we were more than just friends. Zoe pulled me aside and in a low voice asked if I was cheating on her dad. My heart stopped for a second, but I tried to deny it. I wasn't ready to admit it out loud, especially not to my own daughter. But Zoe wasn't having it. She told me not to lie and promised she wouldn't say anything. Then, to my surprise, she told me she liked Ryan. She said she had noticed how much happier I had been recently, and that if Ryan was the reason for that, then she thought it was a good thing. She said it so casually, like it was the most normal thing in the world. Zoe then offered to help me even more. She promised she'd keep Brad busy upstairs, taking care of him since he wasn't feeling well. She would make sure he didn't come downstairs and see Ryan. After all, Brad was a daddy's boy. If he saw Ryan, he'd definitely tell my husband, no questions asked. Zoe understood that, and she was on board with helping me cover it up. I couldn't believe it. I was so relieved, so thankful, that I didn't even stop to think about how messed up the whole situation was. Ryan and I had moved to the bedroom, spent the afternoon together, and everything seemed like it was going according to plan. Zoe was upstairs, keeping Brad busy, and for that brief moment, it all felt perfect. But now, looking back, I realize how deeply wrong, how completely fucked up it all was. I had involved my own daughter in this mess, pulled her into my lies, my affair, and of course, if things had gone smoothly, I wouldn't be here, writing this post. No, the worst possible scenario played out, worse than anything I could have imagined. My husband wasn't supposed to come home until the next day. That was part of the reason I'd felt so desperate to see Ryan that day. There was a window of time where I felt safe, but out of nowhere, I heard his voice downstairs. He was home, early. My heart dropped into my stomach. The first thing I heard was Brad's footsteps, pounding down the stairs like he wasn't even sick anymore. It was as if his illness had miraculously disappeared. and I could hear the excitement in his voice as he called out for his dad. That's when the panic set in. I froze. Ryan and I were still in the bedroom, and there was no time to hide him or come up with any solid plan. I could hear my husband moving around downstairs, probably confused by the extra car in the driveway. I was screwed. I knew Zoe must have been freaking out too. She came upstairs to warn me, knocking frantically on the bedroom door, but we'd locked it. I felt like I was going to throw up. I told Zoe through the door that we'd make up a lie. The only thing I could come up with was to tell my husband that Ryan was a repairman I'd called to check the sink in our bedroom. It was a weak story, but I had nothing else. I was sweating buckets, my mind racing. I glanced at Ryan, and he looked just as panicked as I was. I knew I couldn't hide him because his car was parked outside. There was no escaping that. So I asked him if he knew anything about fixing sinks, if he could at least pretend to be working on something. Maybe, just maybe, we could pull it off. But Ryan didn't have a clue. He wasn't handy at all, and the whole thing was crumbling before my eyes. Still, we had to try. I told him to stand by the sink and pretend like he was fixing it. Then I composed myself as best as I could and went downstairs to greet my husband, trying to act like everything was normal, like I wasn't hiding a secret that could blow up my entire life. The first thing my husband asked was about the car in the driveway. I told him it belonged to the repairman, who was upstairs working on our sink. I lied, saying the water wasn't running properly, and that I'd asked Ryan to take a look at it since he was a coworker who also did repairs on the side. I could see the look of confusion on my husband's face, but he didn't press the issue. Not right away. Brad, of course, was totally confused. He hadn't heard anything about a broken sink or a repairman coming over. I could feel my anxiety rising with every word that came out of my mouth. Zoe was standing nearby, wide-eyed, probably hoping that my story would somehow hold up. We all headed upstairs together, Brad clinging to his dad and Zoe trailing behind us. I was praying that nothing would look too out of place when we got to the bedroom, but of course I'd forgotten one crucial detail. The bed was a mess. Both sides of the bed were completely unmade, and it was obvious that two people had been in it. The moment my husband saw it, his face changed. He didn't say anything, but I could feel the suspicion radiating off of him. My mind was spinning. I tried to recover, telling him that Zoe had taken a nap in the bed earlier and had just woken up. But I knew it was a terrible lie. Zoe never napped during the day, and even if she had, only one side of the bed should have been messed up, not both. Zoe wasn't the type to roll around when she slept. She slept almost rigidly and always stuck to a little corner. It was even something we teased her about. I could see my husband's expression harden, and I knew I was losing control of the situation. Then, Brad chimed in, innocently debunking my lie. He said Zoe had been with him in his room the whole day and that she hadn't slept at all. I froze. My heart was pounding so loudly I could barely think straight. My husband's expression shifted again. This time, it was darker, more intense. He wasn't just suspicious anymore. He knew. He didn't have to say anything for me to realize that. Without a word, my husband walked over to the bathroom door and opened it. And there stood Ryan, awkwardly pretending to mess with the sink. But the charade was over. It was done. My husband just stared at him, then at me. I could see the betrayal written all over his face. He didn't have to say it. He knew what was going on. He had probably pieced it together the moment he saw the car outside. For a few seconds, everything was silent. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. It felt like the world had stopped, and all I could do was wait for the explosion. But it didn't come. Not then, at least. My husband just stood there, staring at me, his eyes filled with something that wasn't quite rage, but more like deep, painful disbelief. Then, in the calmest voice I've ever heard him use, he turned to Ryan and told him to get out. He didn't yell. He didn't scream. He just told Ryan to leave. Things only got worse that day. I wish I could say it ended with Ryan leaving, but it didn't. My husband kicked him out, but the real storm came after. The moment Ryan walked out of the door, I felt my world crumbling. I was sweating buckets, on the verge of fainting. I had to sit down on the bed because I just didn't know what else to do. I kept thinking, what now? How do I even begin to fix this? My husband didn't say a word to me at first. Instead, he pulled Brad aside and took him downstairs. The panic that had been building in my chest reached a peak. I was sure he was grilling Brad, asking him everything about what had happened that day. My heart was racing, my thoughts were a blur, and I couldn't stop replaying all the moments where I could have, should have, made a different choice. Zoe stayed with me. Of course she did. She sat beside me, silent, probably just as scared as I was. I felt so sick. I dragged her into this. My daughter, the person I was supposed to protect, was now in the middle of this disaster because of my choices. When my husband came back upstairs, he was calm, too calm. He had left Brad downstairs, and I could hear Brad heading up to his room. My husband looked at Zoe and simply told her to leave the room. She hesitated, probably sensing what was coming, but she obeyed. She didn't go far, though. I knew her well enough to know she was hovering right outside the door. She always had this habit of staying just within earshot, especially during tense moments like this. It wasn't even really an argument. My husband didn't scream or throw things like I'd half expected. Instead, his voice was steady, controlled, which somehow made it so much worse. He told me that he had known I was cheating for a while now, but he needed to catch me in the act. He said that me cheating was bad enough, but what really disgusted him was the fact that I had involved Zoe. That's when I felt like the world was collapsing in on itself. That's also when Zoe, standing right outside the door, spoke up. I could have told her not to, could have stopped her, but I didn't. She said she had helped me willingly, that she had seen how happy I was with Ryan and wanted to support me. She said that it wasn't my fault and that I was happier with Ryan. I wanted to scream, to tell her to stop talking, but the words wouldn't come. She was just trying to protect me, but she didn't realize how much worse she was making everything. My husband's face tightened at her words. He didn't even look at Zoe. He kept his eyes on me. And then, in that calm, cold voice, he told me to leave. He said I needed to pack my bags, pack Zoe's things, and go live with Ryan, the man who supposedly made me happier. That's when the panic hit me full force. I started begging, stumbling over my words, trying to convince him that it was all a mistake, that Ryan was just a repairman, which, looking back now, sounds utterly ridiculous. But my husband wasn't having it. He didn't believe a word I said. He gave me 10 minutes, just 10 minutes to pack up and get out. I was shaking as I threw things into a bag. Zoe was silent, packing her things in disbelief. I didn't want to leave, but I knew I had no choice. My husband was calm, yes, but when he got truly angry, it could get really ugly, and I couldn't risk that, especially not with Zoe. I had already destroyed so much for her. I couldn't let things get any worse. We left. I had nowhere to go, no plan, and when I checked my bank account and the money in it was so little, I didn't want to waste it on a few days at a hotel. I checked our joint account and my husband had already cleared it. I was completely cut off. No money, no home, no idea of what to do next. I couldn't afford a hotel, so I ended up calling an old acquaintance. A distant one, honestly. Someone I hadn't spoken to in ages. I had no choice but to beg them to let me stay for a few days, just until I figured things out. That's where I've been for the past couple of days. Since then, I've been trying, desperately trying, to get in touch with my husband. I've texted, called, left voice messages, even tried emailing him, but he's not interested. He won't even give me the chance to explain or apologize. I get it, he's furious. He has every right to be, but I need to at least try. I need to fix this, for Zoe's sake, for Brad, for all of us. And as for Ryan, he hasn't called me once since that day, not once. He's been avoiding me at work too. I don't know if he's scared or just doesn't care, but he's vanished from my life just as quickly as he came into it. I feel so alone right now. I've lost everything, my home, my marriage, and now, even the man I thought made me happy. I don't know what to do. Reddit, please help me. How do I even begin to fix this? Can I fix this? Should I? What can I do to make things right with my husband and my kids? I'm lost, and I need advice. Update. Wow, I really got judged and bashed badly on here. I came here for advice, not to be insulted even more. Honestly, it stings. I know everything is my fault. I'm not trying to justify my actions, believe me, I get it. I'm the one who messed up everything. But still, can we dial down the judgment a bit? It feels like I'm being kicked while I'm down, and I can only take so much right now. A lot of you also asked for an update. I guess it's ironic. You're bashing me and then asking how things are going. But I do have a bit of an update, so here it goes. First of all, I managed to get in touch with my husband. We had a long conversation that felt like it lasted hours. He was calm, but the pain in his voice was palpable. We talked about everything. About what I did, about the kids, about our marriage. It essentially ended with him saying he couldn't forgive me. I expected that, honestly. I wish things could have been different, but deep down, I knew it was a long shot. If the roles were reversed, I wouldn't be able to forgive him either. So we're headed for a divorce. I've started to process what that means, and it feels surreal. I'm trying to wrap my head around how I got to this point and how my life is about to change in ways I never imagined. I made one request of him during our conversation. I asked if he would allow Zoe to come back to the house and stay there for a while. Thankfully, he agreed to that. I can't express how relieved I am that she won't have to stay in limbo with me, especially with everything going on. Once I leave this acquaintance's home, I'll probably need to stay in a hotel for a bit until I can figure out my next steps. I want to find an apartment for myself, but that means I need to save up for a down payment. The idea of having a roommate isn't appealing to me. I want the kids to be able to visit whenever they want without feeling like they're intruding on someone else's space. But having no roommate means all the bills will fall on me, which is daunting and means I'll have to work even harder. I've already put in requests for overtime at work and started looking for side hustles. I know all of this happened in a short amount of time, but I need to kick things into gear for the sake of my kids. They're my priority, and I want to be able to provide for them, even if it means putting in extra hours and juggling multiple jobs. So, yeah, that's it, I guess. I'm trying to keep my head above water. Update. Hey Reddit, it's me again. It's been a couple of weeks, and you all keep asking for an update, so here goes. First of all, I got served. Yeah, that's the major update. My husband is moving forward with the divorce, and I'm just wallowing in self-pity. I hate myself for ruining everything, and it feels like, ironically, I love my husband even more now that it's all falling apart. I find myself wanting to work on things, missing him more than I ever thought possible. Secondly, as you all kept asking, I finally got in touch with Ryan. I cornered him during our break, and let me tell you, it was brutal. He basically told me off, saying he didn't want anything to do with me anymore. He said it had just been a fling that got way too serious, and now he was done. It was painful to hear, especially since he was the one who played a part in ruining my marriage. I guess I shouldn't be surprised, but it still stings. Working together is going to be awkward, because the coworkers have already noticed how different things are. We used to be close, and now it feels like there's this big, uncomfortable elephant in the room whenever we run into each other. Everyone's curious and nosy, but I just try to brush them off and keep my mouth shut. I can't let them know what's going on. On a slightly brighter note, I'm now staying at a hotel. I finally had to leave my acquaintance's home. Honestly, I'm surprised they let me stay for that long. We hadn't talked in ages, and we ended our contact on a not-so-good note, but they really came through for me. I appreciate them more than I can say. Financially, I've been putting my savings together. In a couple of months, I should be able to afford the down payment on a little apartment. I know it definitely won't be a huge place, but it'll be mine, and that feels like a step in the right direction. I've never been good at saving, and it's definitely bitten me in the ass, but I'm learning my lesson. I'm determined to do better moving forward. As for my husband, he now lets me come over to see the kids, which is both a relief and incredibly awkward. Despite our efforts to protect Brad from the fallout, I think he knows something's up. He's resentful of me, very, very resentful actually. It breaks my heart. Zoe too is starting to feel that way. I know she feels like I've ruined things for everyone, and it's maddening because she was the one who helped me in the first place. If she hadn't gotten involved, maybe none of this would have happened. But I can't blame her. She's just a kid, and I know this is all on me. Zoe has confided in me that she really wants to fix things with her dad. She's scared he'll never forgive her, which is heartbreaking. She's only 15, but she's not stupid. She gets it more than I'd like to admit. Meanwhile, it feels like my husband and Brad have grown even closer. I hate that I've put everyone in this position. So, that's it, I guess. I'm just trying to keep my head above water and survive through all of this. I'm sorry I haven't been able to update every single day like some of you want. It's like some of you forget that people have actual lives outside of Reddit. Update. Hey Reddit, it's me again. I know it's been a while and I apologize for the radio silence. I kept getting a ton of requests for an update, but I really wanted to wait until everything was finalized before sharing. Plus, I've been super busy, stressed, and tired from working overtime, so it's been hard to find the time to sit down and write this out. But I finally have some updates, so let's dive in. First off, I'm finally out of the hotel. I've moved into a little apartment. It's small, but it's mine, and I've been there for a couple of weeks now. It feels good to have my own space again. The best part is that Brad can come over and visit me, although he hasn't been doing that very much, which is really tough. As for the divorce, it's officially finalized. In my state, cheating is a really big deal, and it comes with some serious consequences. I didn't get any early money or spousal support, which honestly stings. We had no debts to split, so that's something, but I was hoping for at least a little bit of financial help during this transition. When it comes to child custody, things got complicated. My husband wanted custody of Brad, but didn't want custody of Zoe, which absolutely broke my heart. I know she's always been closer to me, but she's been desperately trying to fix things with her dad. So when I told her I got custody, she was sad because it felt like a rejection from him. I couldn't bring myself to tell her that her dad didn't want her. I didn't want to crush her spirit any more than it already was, so I just told her the court awarded me custody. So now I have custody of Zoe, and my husband has custody of Brad. Brad is still a kid. He's only 13, and he knows that he can come over whenever he wants. But I think he's still really resentful of me right now. I've been trying to mend things, but he hasn't been coming over much at all. In fact, since I've moved into my new place, he's only visited 3 times. It breaks my heart because I want to fix our relationship, but I just don't know how. If anyone has any ideas or advice on how to bridge that gap, I'm all ears. Zoe, on the other hand, has been visiting her dad a lot. She's trying so hard to fix their relationship, which I totally support, but it's also hard for me to watch her go over there, especially knowing how much her dad didn't want her. She's been vocal about her resentment toward me, and I can see she's starting to understand just how wrong my actions were. Honestly, I've been working a ton of overtime to save more money and get my life back on track. I know I messed up, and it feels like I'm constantly reminded of it. I never saw any of this coming, and it's overwhelming. My life feels like a mess right now, and I'm trying to navigate this new reality as best as I can. So, yeah, that's where I'm at. Thanks for listening, and I appreciate any advice or support you can offer.
Sometimes when you read about men that were cheated on by their partners, you can't help but ask, how does he feel? What did he do? I just know that he is going to end that marriage and find someone better. Most times the men do deserve someone better, but there's just one problem. Can they fully recover from being cheated on? Will they ever be able to trust anyone again? I recently discovered that my wife of 6 years had been cheating on me for 3 years with a random guy she met at our wedding, and I honestly don't know how I feel or what to do. I am stuck between peacefully filing for a divorce and being on the 9 p.m. news for something I might do. As I write this, I am at a wedding, sitting on the bed while a bag of clothes is placed in front of me. I honestly can't still grasp the situation or how I had been so blinded by the love I had for my war that I didn't notice sooner. I need to tell someone what happened, or else I might potentially lose my mind. My name is Greg Okoro, and I am a dark-skinned 42-year-old, 5'11" male with married to Clara Aide, a light-skinned 36-year-old 5'3" female. Clara and I met at the shopping mall. We both stood at the checkout line when a man came from nowhere and stood of Clara. Being annoyed at his behavior, Clara tapped on his back in order to get his attention before asking him to move to the back of the line because there were people who were there for her. Now, as I had stated before, Clara is 5'3", and this guy stood at least 6 FT tall and looked down at her before responding rudely that she should mind her business and allow him to pay for his groceries. Clara didn't stop, but again asked him to move to the back of the queue, and this really annoyed him because he soon threw his basket of groceries on the floor and was now looking at Clara, the way a lion looks at another lion who enters his territory. But Clara didn't budge, but I knew that if I didn't do anything, things would get out of hand. I ran out of my spot and rushed to where they stood, took Clara's hand and said, "Honey, let's go." They said that Mom is in the hospital, which is a lie, obviously. before dragging her to the counter where the cashier quickly checked out our things. Before leaving, I hurriedly apologized to the man before dragging a shocked Clara behind me. After we had left the mall, she seemed to snap out her shock and asked me who the hell I thought I was. I calmly explained that if I didn't intervene when I did, the guy would have done something to her, and I reminded her that we lived in a country where our safety is not guaranteed by the police. She seemed to calm down after this and thanked me. We exchanged contacts before I walked her to her car and watched her drive off before getting into mine. That singular encounter changed my life forever. Clara and I started texting, meeting for innocent lunch and dinner dates before I asked her to be my girlfriend. She accepted, and it was heaven on earth. I would always wake up to calls from her, surprise visits at house, home-cooked meals, more dates. But we never got too intimate. Clara came from a Catholic family, and they don't take kindly to such things. Her parents are Yoruba and also very traditional, so simple things like lying on the floor to greet them matter a lot. After dating for 3 years, I popped the question and she said yes. I was beyond happy because I have finally found my better half, my missing rib. Cheesy, I know. The wedding was beautiful, and finally it was time to go home and start the rest of our lives. We waited a year before we started trying for kids. The reason for this was because we both agreed that we wanted to have that period all to ourselves and build our careers before we can bring a child into the picture. On the second anniversary of our marriage, Clara surprised me with a positive pregnancy test result, and to say that I was happy was a big lie. I was more than happy, and why wouldn't I be? I was married to the perfect woman and she was about to give me the perfect child. I always assumed we're happy. I worked hard as an accountant at Advise LLP, CPA firm at 6230 Wilshire BLVD Suite, Real 192, Los Angeles, CA 9048, United States provide for our comfortable life at LA. I trusted Clara completely and never suspected that anything was wrong. I mean, what could possibly go wrong? Now 5 years and 2 kids later, I start noticing some changes. Clara stopped sending me good morning texts. Yes, I know what you're thinking, but even after we got married, she still kept the habit of always sending me good morning texts whenever she woke up. She always got up before I did to take care of the kids and get breakfast ready, but always found time to send me the cutest texts that would leave me smiling and giggling to myself all day. It was always something short and cute, like, if you were a vegetable, you'd be a cucumber, or are you Netflix? Because I could watch you for hours. But all of a sudden, the messages stopped coming. When it first happened, I just brushed it off and assumed that she had a pretty hectic day and must have forgotten. But when 2 weeks had gone back without any good morning texts, I knew that Clara had changed. It was as though she had stopped caring about me and our marriage. The only time I would see her brighten up would be when she's with our kids, but whenever we would be alone, she would be so stiff and uptight with me that every conversation with her felt like a conversation between my boss and I. I thought I had done something wrong and even went as far as apologizing and treating her to a fancy dinner. But even after all that, she still remained the same. She had started keeping late nights, claiming she had to work overtime or meet with friends. She became so distant and cold that she started avoiding my affection and attention. I have never questioned my wife and her work. Neither have I ever imagined her of doing anything to hurt me, so I always went with her excuses. We had to get maid to help take care of the kids while we were at work, but I made sure to always coming back before they went to bed. I always assured them that their mother loved them because my eldest daughter kept asking why her mother was hardly at home and if they had done something to upset their mother. Hearing this from a 4-year-old girl broke my heart, so I told her that her mother just had a lot of work to do and also reassured them that their mother loved them so much. Each time I tell Clara what the kids say, she promises to change, which she does, but only for a day or two. Now I am a very calm and quiet guy, but for some reason, I was slowly getting agitated by what was going on, but I never for once questioned my wife's faithfulness to me. I always blamed her work or something else for her behavior. I never stopped being a loving and devoted husband who secretly prayed that things go back to the way they were. If someone had told me what the following year would bring and how it would affect me, I would have cussed the person out. The following year started off different. Clara was back to normal and even better than before. She was always smiling and laughing each time I saw her. The good morning texts started coming again, and she even added some happy endings at the end of the day for me. and I couldn't believe how lucky I was. I was also happy to see her spend more time with the children, and she even started coming back from work early. It was truly amazing because at that moment I felt like nothing could ever go wrong with life. One thing that she also started doing the year was going to the gym at night with her friends from work. She went every Sunday and would return to the house some minutes past 8. But she was always in a cheerful mood when she returned, so I didn't question the odd hours. It suddenly changed from every Sunday to Saturdays and Sundays. I didn't mind because her attitude didn't change towards the kids and I, so I turned a blind eye to it. After 6 months of going to night gym, there was no visible change in her body. She was still the same and even added a few pounds. Not that I am complaining about that though. One day I jokingly told her that I would love to join her in her gym sessions, and she immediately tensed up and got all defensive. She said, and I quote, "You don't need to go to the gym with me. It's mostly just ladies working out and talking about their husbands." Upon saying this, it dawned on me that she had never told me the name of her gym or where it was located, so I asked her. She looked at me for some time before she said she needed to use the restroom. My fellow Redditors, the next time I asked about the name and location of the gym, she came prepared with even pictures of herself outside and inside the gym. The gym was Hybrid Gym, LA. After that, I left it alone, but I was still curious as to why she reacted the way she did the first time I asked her about it. It was our wedding anniversary, and I planned to surprise her. I wanted to pay some people to follow me to the gym holding a cake, a money bouquet, and money cake, as well as a saxophone player that was going to play her favorite song for her. I called her sister to help me plan the surprise as well, follow me there to capture the beautiful moment. Around 5 p.m., everyone was ready and we drove to the gym in my car. Luckily, there was no traffic that day, so we only spent 30 minutes on the road. When we got there, everyone got into place. My sister-in-law started recording on her phone. I held the money bouquet. My Love by Westlife was playing on the saxophone, while those carrying the money cakes were at the back. I couldn't wait to see her face. Upon entering the building, we were met with many shocked and surprised faces, but none of them belonged to Clara. Thinking she might have gone to the restroom, I approached the receptionist and asked her if my wife had arrived. She asked for my wife's name, but after checking her records, she informed me that nobody by that name had registered there. I was confused because my wife had been going there for months, or did I get the name wrong? I asked her sister to call her and ask her where she was, but specifically told her not to inform my wife of my presence. She left to make the phone call while I went back to the car with others. After 5 minutes, she came back with a strange look on her face, and when I asked her what happened, she told me that Clara had told her that she was at the Free Hand LA, which was located at 416 W 8th St. Los Angeles, CA 914, United States. I just assumed that it was a work thing, or maybe her friends had lodged her to celebrate her anniversary with her. It's stupid, I know, but I always made excuses for her. I asked if she got the room number from Clara, to which she nodded, and we were off. Now, I am going to be frank with you guys. Nothing, and I mean nothing, could have prepared me for what happened. In all my years of existence, I have never had the privilege of wishing that the earth would open up and swallow me, never to spit me back ever again. Thinking about it now makes me physically nauseous and stupid at the same time. How could I not see the signs? Why did I keep making up excuses for her? Why didn't I just confront her? No matter how many times I ask myself these questions, I never get a response. If I had done something earlier, maybe it won't hurt as much as it did now, or maybe I would have left before it was too late. I would still be sane and happy, but no, I chose to be the loving clown who trusted the enemy to take a bullet for me. When we got to the hotel, I told the receptionist about my plan to surprise Clara and even told her that we already knew the room number. She agreed not to call Clara's room and we went up. Again, like before, we got into position, phone recording, saxophone playing, money cakes, and money bouquet ready. I took a huge breath before knocking on the door. The door opened, and before me stood my wife in a towel with her hair wet. The moment she saw me, she froze, and I was about to speak when a voice spoke behind her. "If that's room service, ask them to get us new sheets. We got carried away and messed up this one," the voice said. I recognized that voice, but I couldn't place it. Clara still stood there, not saying a word to me or moving. Before I could say a word, someone stood behind her in nothing but shorts. The moment he saw me, His eyes grew wide and his mouth fell open. It was John. For some backstory, John was my stepbrother. Same father, different mother, but you would never know because we did everything together. The day I met Clara, I told him. The day she agreed to go out with me, I told him. The day she agreed to be my wife, he was there. He was my best man at my wedding, for crying out loud. I even complained to him when Clara was acting up and he told me she'd come around. He even had the nerve to suggest that he might be cheating on me with someone else, but I guess he was the someone else. The thing was, I loved John so much that I was ready to give a kidney and a lung if he wanted me to, and I always thought the feeling was mutual, but joke's on me. Haha. I stood there speechless. Clara's sister had been able to snap out of her shock and asked others to follow her down to the car while I still stood there. I looked down at the floor for what felt like an eternity before I opened my mouth. How long? They both kept quiet. How long has this been going on? I shouted, which caused them both to flinch. They had never seen or even heard me raise my voice, so the shouting caught them off guard. Clara opened her mouth, but no words came out. Then John spoke up. A year after Amanda was born. My head shot up and I looked at them. What? I managed to mutter. Clara was going through some hard times. We met, had a couple drinks. One thing led to the other and we spent the night together. I wanted to stop, but before John could say another word, I punched him across the face. Clara tried to talk to me, but in a fit of rage, I slapped her right across her face. What do you want to tell me, huh? You're sorry? Or that you were lonely? Or maybe I was never around? No, tell me the excuse you want to give for sleeping with my stepbrother for 3 years while you gave me hell at home for 2 years and some months. You'd come home with an attitude, refuse to spend time with the kids. Your kids hate and nag at every single thing I do, but what do? I still love you. I make excuses for you to your kids. I make excuses for you to myself. I even complain to him. I point to John, who's holding his jaw. But what do I get? As I said this, I could feel the tears leaving my eyes, but I couldn't be bothered to clean them. Before either of them could say another word, I went back to the car, dropped off my sister-in-law and others, drove home, packed my things as well as my children's clothes, and took them to stay with my godmother. I just told her to look after them and that I would be back to pick them in a few days, but on no account should she allow Clara to take them. I promised to explain everything to her when I got the chance to. After I dropped them off, I went back to my house, got the gun I secretly bought as a bachelor, and checked into a small hotel. This is my story so far. Clara has called and texted me countless times, but I haven't said Q word. It's been 3 days since this incident, and I haven't moved from the bed since then. I haven't eaten or drank anything. Neither have I gotten up to take a shower. My head is still fuzzy about everything. Most times I think to myself, what if Emeka was not truly my son? What if John was responsible for the pregnancy? Each time I get these thoughts, I shake it off with the response that I was there when Emeka came into this world, and that I'll always see and love him as my son. Update. It has always baffled me how someone could sleep peacefully after doing something so evil that the mere mention of it would cause chills. I'm still at the motel, and it's been 3 months since I got here, and a lot has happened since then. It's been a bumpy ride, and I honestly still can't say how I feel about the whole thing. For those of you who might be confused, or maybe this is your first time coming across my story, hi, my name is Greg, and I am in the middle of a messy situation. Now, for some context, I detailed what I was going through in my previous post, but I'll still do a quick recap. I had been married to the love of my life for 6 years, but recently find out that she had been cheating on me for 3 years, and you will never believe who she chose to sleep with. My stepbrother. I know it sounds hard to believe, and honestly, after all the while, I still find it hard to believe that was able to find myself in this kind of situation. This is the kind of stuff that you read about on the news or maybe watch on those YouTube channels, but here I am, actually going through it in reality. Now, my wife had been trying to reach me and my kids, but when she found out that she couldn't, she took a different approach. As I think about it now, I've just realized that she isn't the same woman I dated and fell in love with. Was she just hiding her true colors? Or were they always there and I was just too stupid to see them? Anyway, back to what she did that left a scar on my heart. I got a call from my dad one day asking me to come over. Now, my dad is Nigerian and grew up there before relocating to the United States of America, and, well, let's just say that we, my siblings and I, were brought up Nigerian style, and whenever we were summoned, it always meant one of us had done something and was going to be scolded at. After I got the call, I sat on the bed and thought long and hard as to what might have caused my father to summon me. No matter how hard I thought, I couldn't think of anything, so I just accepted that I would only know if I visit him. The next day, I got up early and got ready for my visit to my father. He lived it, so it took some time for me to get there, but when I eventually did, I remembered why I hardly visited. Everyone was smiling and welcomed me wholeheartedly while my dad just stood there. I walked up to him with my hand extended for a handshake. But that was not what I got. The moment I got close enough to him, he drew him closer to him, hugged me, let go of me, and then slapped me across the face. Yes, I know it sounds strange, but it happened so fast that I couldn't process anything. Why are you such a disappointment? It's hard enough that you didn't turn out like your siblings, but you also cheat on your wife? I was so stunned I couldn't react. I stood there, hand on my cheek, looking at my father, who was looking at me with a look on his face I had never seen before. He slapped me. My father had never raised his hands to hit us, so where was this coming from? What? I managed to blurt out after some seconds. He repeated his words, but this time he said it calmly, and after saying it, he sat down and looked at me, waiting for my response. Who said I cheated on her? I asked, while still looking at my father with my hand still on my cheek. My father took a deep breath, looked at me from my head down to my toes before speaking. Listen, marriage has its ups and downs, and even though you had never done things the right way, I never expected you to be one accused of cheating on his partner, he said while looking at me dead in the eyes. I finally let go of my cheek and tried to defend myself, but when I tried to mutter words, he asked me to leave. Yes, he asked me to leave his house and to add a cherry on top of the icing. He said that I had to call my wife, apologize to her, beg her to take me back, or I would be disowned by my family. I would be disowned. I would be disowned by my father for something I didn't do. The moment I reached my motel, I fell on my bed and started laughing. I laughed so much my tummy began to hurt, and before I knew it, I fell asleep. The next day, I decided to go and visit my kids at my mother's place. When I got there, they were so happy to see me, and as usual, asked when their mom was going to return from her trip. I had told them that she had traveled for a work trip, and since I had changed my children from their old school, I didn't have to worry about Clara going to look for them there. You see, my mom and my father had divorced and were living separately. They separated 2 years after Clara and I got married, but I never told Clara where she lives, and I'm thankful for that now. After spending time with my kids, I sat down with my mom and told her what happened between her husband and I. She was surprised that I wasn't given a listening ear and was threatened in such a way. Mom knew everything that had happened between Clara and I, so she was able to judge the situation fairly. She asked me to file for a divorce and fight for custody of my kid, but I reminded her that doing that would cause my father to get involved, and since he believes I'm the one at fault, he would hire the best lawyer money can afford and take my kids from me. I stayed till 7 p.m. before I went back to the motel. Once I got there, an idea popped up in my head, and I called my sister-in-law to talk to her. We had been keeping in touch all this while she even told me that Clara had brought John home and fabricated a lie to their parents, which won them over. She also told me that Clara seemed different, but I told her that I didn't call her to talk about her sister and that I needed something from her. I told her what I needed and she agreed. The next day, I got the nerve to visit my house in Clara. When I got there, everything looked the same, but it felt different. I knocked on the door and Clara opened the door. She was shocked to see me, but she immediately removed the look of shock from her face and invited me in. I sat down and she offered me something to drink, but I declined. After what felt like hours, I cleared my throat and spoke up. "How are you, Clara?" Saying her name while looking at her sent tears to my eyes, but I had to bite my tongue to prevent myself from breaking down. "I'm fine. How have you been? You look pale. Have you been eating well?" She asked me with a hint of concern in her tone. I didn't respond immediately because what exactly was I to say? I was fine? Of course not, but I wasn't about to let her see that. "I'm all right, Clara. I've just been busy with work. Look, the reason I came back was because I stopped talking, looked her in the eye, then fell on my knees. Please forgive me. I'm sorry for everything that happened. I'm sorry for not being a better husband, for not paying attention, for not loving you more, for failing as a husband. Clara, please forgive me. At this point, I was in tears. I was sobbing like a child while Clara sat there and looked at me helplessly. After a few minutes, she got up and knelt beside me. She wiped my tears and said that she had forgiven me, and that it was fine as long as I had realized my mistake. I had realized and asked her to let me back into her life. I also told her I had given them my blessings to be together, and she was so happy. She started doing this little dance that always made me smile. I decided to move back in with her, but as a housemate until I can find a place of my own. I also found out that they, John and Clara, were planning on getting married. John and I patched things up the following week, and honestly, everything was going so well. I brought the kids back, and they were so excited to see their mom. Now I know you're going to ask me what has come over me, or possibly call me the biggest simp of all time, but I don't care. Seeing Clara happy made me happy, and that was all that mattered. Everything was going great at home. Clara and John would go out, and I would stay home to look after the kids. John and I quickly bonded again, and I was even made his best man. I still remember feeling like a girl who had been asked to dance. He told me about it. I helped with most of the planning and made sure everything went perfectly. Clara's parents have forgiven me for what I did to their daughter, but her sister wouldn't talk to me. She thinks I've lost my mind. What does she know? Love makes you do stupid things, and honestly, I wasn't even complaining. My father was pleased with my decision and even asked me to visit him anytime wanted. The wedding was held at Hollywood and Suites Hotel at El Segundo Boulevard Gardena, and we would have a big reception at their beautiful hall. Clara and John let me handle everything, and honestly, after doing all that for them, I felt so peaceful. I found myself wondering why I didn't do this sooner. I even found out that Clara was expecting. She told me first and made me swear not to tell John. I was so happy she trusted me enough to tell me about it. One day I saw Clara looking worried, and I asked her what the problem was. It's nothing serious, just pre-wedding jitters, I guess, she told me while looking at her nails. I took her hands, gave it a soft kiss, and assured her that she had nothing to worry about. I had taken care of everything to the very last detail, and all they had to do was to be there and be happy. She smiled, gave me a long hug, and thanked me. When she was about to pull away, we both realized that our faces were so close to each other. Without warning, she kissed me and, well, I kind of kissed her back. Now, before you hate me, remember that I still loved her, and I guess those feelings never died. She didn't pull away from the kiss, and when she did, she simply smiled and said, "Thank you," to which I smiled back and left the room. I felt so happy I almost jumped up like a child. Tomorrow was the wedding, so I had to sleep early. Life is not always beautiful, but when you have something to look forward to every day, you stop seeing the thorns and only focus on the roses. I had been so focused on the thorns that I forgot how the roses smelt, but not anymore. I was going to give life another chance, but first I had to be there for two important people in my life at the moment. Finally, the wedding day had arrived, and Clara looked so stunning in her wedding dress. She wore a trumpet wedding dress with a long veil and a crown on her head, while John wore a three-piece slim fit suit with Oxford shoes. They both looked like something you'd read in a storybook, and I kid you not, I teared up when they both said their vows. The wedding ceremony was beautiful, and now it was time for the reception. After everyone had eaten and enjoyed themselves, I asked John to give me some time to give them a gift, and he agreed. You know, I just love happy endings. They always made me smile, so I wanted to give them one. Now I had installed a big screen and hired a projector because I planned to play a slideshow for them. The slideshow started with a picture of Clara as a baby, and then one of John as a child. That caused the crowd to smile and go, "Oh!" Next were videos of Clara and John in cute moments, looking at each other smiling and laughing. It was indeed a beautiful moment. Then, a video started playing. It was of me smiling into the camera. I can't wait to see her face when we go there. It's going to be priceless. I know that things have been going roughly, and that work has been hectic, but I still love you, and I will always love you. I spoke into the camera before asking someone in front of me if they were ready. The next slide was a video of me in the gym with Kenzie looking around for Clara. Then it showed the gym receptionist informing us that Clara wasn't a member of the gym. Then I turned the camera to myself and spoke. Did I forget the name of the gym? I was still asking myself questions when the voice of Clara's sister was heard, telling me that she had gotten her sister on the phone, so I looked into the camera, smiled, and said, "Let's go." Now, as you can imagine, the bride looks very uncomfortable in her seat while the groom is shooting me death glares, but I just smile back and turn my head back to the video. Now we had arrived at the hotel and we saw the receptionist talking to me. Then we slowly made our way up the hotel stairs. We arrived at the door and the saxophone can be heard in the background. As I was about to knock on the door, John stood up and demanded that the slideshow be stopped, but to everyone's surprise, my father told him to keep quiet and asked me to continue. Now, when I tell you that I had the biggest smile on my face, I continued with the slideshow and showed how I discovered about Clara and John. The entire room fell silent. Everyone turned to look at the newlywed and shook their heads. My fellow Redditors, I wasn't done yet. You see, I recorded our entire conversation from that day and it was shown. The next slideshow was about Clara. She was seen with an older man and they were being intimate with each other. I paused at the moment and took the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, how are we doing? How are we enjoying the wedding so far? Good? Okay. Now, some of you may know me as the evil ex-husband who cheated on his beautiful wife, and many of you hated me without even knowing me. I was even threatened by my own father because of her. I always wondered why, but guess what? Now I know. After I said this, I played the video, and guess what? The older man in the video was my father. Yes, my biological father. I found out about them after I made peace with Clara and John. But let's go back to the wedding. The moment my father's face appeared on the screen, I think I heard someone scream, but at that moment I didn't even care to turn back. I was too invested in how good the video had come out. The next slide was a picture, or rather more pictures of Clara and my father while an audio recording was playing. It was Clara on the phone with her friend, and she was saying how she had gotten pregnant again for my dad. She further revealed that my father was the biological father of our daughter, and that she was just going to do it all over again with John and tell him that he's the father. The final clip had me in it. It was the night Clara and I kissed. Well, we may have done more than that, and every second was recorded, but before it ended, a clip of John hitting on Clara's younger sister appeared. He said that he was only getting married to her so that he could take out a life insurance on her. He further stated that after he was done with her, Clara, he would come for her, her sister. After the clip ended, a little message popped up, "Happy married life to John and Clara. I hope you find what you've been searching for in each other. Psy, I hope you like this wedding gift of mine." After the screen went black, I bid everyone farewell and left the hall. I changed my phone number, took my kids, and left. Remember I said I couldn't understand how people could sleep peacefully after causing mayhem. I still can't because I've been sleeping like a baby since that day. I still have my kids with me and I'm currently with Kenzie, Clara's sister. We're not together. Yet who knows? Something might happen later. That's all. I hope my story was able to brighten your day.